And we are live, apparently. So hello again, we're back now for the third theme, which is growing your workforce. And we have two speakers, Nat Porter, you've already heard from, and Martin Brown, who'll be speaking later on. And first of all, then Nat, who is going to speak about the YPHA, useful acronym. Thank you very much, Nat.
Sorry, 1 second. Yes, thank you. Hi, sorry, me again. And as Simon says, here to talk to you about the YPHA, which is the Young People in Horticulture Association. Association was set up, we think, pretty much to the day this time a year ago. And it was set up by Molly Higginson from New Leaf Plants, me and Liam Cleary from Old Railway Line Garden Centre. The three of us had been friends for a while and wanted to start to sort of unite all the younger people in the industry. All three of us are dads or our bosses, effectively, and we kept hearing all these stories about all of this social side to the industry that they'd had when they were younger, and we didn't quite feel like that was there. So part of it was to introduce the social side back to the younger contingent of the industry, but also to unite the industry to consider how we might evolve to appear to a younger demographic than has previously been the case. And that's both in terms of our workforce and, as I spoke about earlier, about the future garden centre customer. So our main objectives were to develop a network of like-minded peers, to educate and be educated by our fellow members across a range of industry-specific and lateral skills. So that's something I'm quite passionate about. The group is young people in horticulture, not young horticulturalists, because there's those of us in the group that wouldn't know the Latin names of the plants and wouldn't know the best way to treat a certain pest or whatever it might be, but also still have a very valuable role, and possibly as valuable a role, moving the industry forward, whether it's marketing related skills, visual merchandising skills, etc. As I mentioned, we wanted to reignite the social side of the industry, hopefully to help the industry attract a younger audience by appearing more sort of like friendly, sociable, approachable, fun. We wanted to consider the future consumer, and we wanted to bring all of that together, take it to schools and college fairs to highlight the fact that the industry exists, but also the extensive benefits of the industry. I'm sure a lot of you in the room will agree, once people become part of horticulture, they don't tend to stray too far away. It is such a friendly, sociable, approachable industry. And it's just getting people in the first place, which seems to be the obstacle at the moment. So we started the group, as I say, last January. The next few slides are sort of what happened through to March, when it all went a bit weird in the world. But we started out with Molly, Liam and I as co-chairs. We put a treasurer in place and a membership secretary. Quickly started to build members. We were up to about 80 when the first lockdown hit. We brought in some ambassadors, and even further down, we broke it down into a bulletins team, a website team, an events team, market research, somebody to try and get us some sponsorship, and really put a structure in so that nobody in the group was overfaced by the tasks that they had to perform to keep the group going. We are all parts of busy businesses. We're all parts of very seasonal businesses, and we tried to lay it so that sort of March to June, where I wouldn't have a minute spare, somebody else could cover that, who their quieter time of the year was then, etc. So we had also as well, probably the most valuable thing that we've included in the group, as it happened, was we partnered up with Perennial, and made it known that our members had access to their counselling packages. I think that's something that the younger contingent of horticulture were less aware of, and the work with Perennial will be invaluable in that respect. So a few facts about members. This is our membership distribution map on the right-hand side. You will see, I don't really know why, but we don't appeal to Geordies or Cumbrians. So if anyone has any anecdotes to explain why, please do let me know. But we've got members right through up to Inverness, down to falling off the bottom of the map, and even a couple over Northern Ireland ways. Average age 27. This one hurts. Youngest member born 2003. Yeah, I was at high school in 2003. Anyway, professions range from landscapers. We've got garden centre head of caterings in there. We've got people who manufacture labels. Every part of the supply chain brought together in one title, and again, young people in horticulture suited us better than young horticulturists for that reason. As of yesterday, 63% male membership. We, on reflection, think that's slightly more even a representation than the industry itself. The industry itself seems to be closer to 75-80% male. So hopefully a sign of a more equal future feeding through. 112 members again as of yesterday. And as I say, we will investigate why we don't seem to appeal to Cumbrians and Northumbrians. Our ambassadors, we brought in, don't need to introduce them very much, Boyd Douglas Davis, Pippa Greenwood, both were there when we had the initial conversations about forming the group, and both have already been worth their weight in gold. We also brought in Michael Perry, Mr. Plant Geek, who is just the most passionate ambassador you could ever hope for, and he doesn't want a conversation to happen without him having some input and letting us know what he thinks. And they really are an active part of the group. We were in the situation where we had agreed one more, which has fallen through because of the lockdowns, etc. But we still hope to add one more ambassador. And if somebody has any suggestions, we would look forward to hearing them. We've also been extremely lucky to both initially secure sponsorship before the lockdowns, but then also to have those offers still carried across and made available to us, even after what's gone on this year. We have 2 levels of sponsorship. We worked out a sponsorship structure with the help of a guy called Ben Bardsley, who is the president of the Next Generation Fruit Group, which is sort of a similar group in the fruits industry, but it's been going decades and raises a serious amount of money and does a serious amount of work with them. So we spoke with Ben, and he helped us to put in 2 levels of sponsorship. So we have our key partners, who are our biggest sponsors, and we have ICL, the Greener Gardening Company, and Flora Media, all 3 of whom stepped up very quickly and have agreed to honour those after all the troubles. We also have a lower tier of sponsorship, which we call the supporters, and we have got Wonderwall, as I mentioned, Perennial, which is a services for services sponsorship. Fargrow, one of the first to step up for us. Guy and the gang at More People, and GrowFlow, who are the online software people Graham and I both mentioned earlier, have been a tremendous help to the industry. So we're really lucky to have those partnerships in place, and they will hopefully give us the resources to still to make something of the group and actually do the group justice. And that was something we were quite passionate about, that if we were going to do it, we were going to do it properly. So what we hope to do, we hope to promote outside the box thinking, look at how other industries have tackled similar challenges, and consider which elements of their success might be emulated in horticulture. Prime example, even within our industry, why have houseplants been so successful? How can we take the elements of their success and apply them to our own businesses? We wanted to share ideas and experiences to form collaborative strategies, host a less conventional calendar of events, each put together to be thought-provoking, enjoyable, and inspiring as much as educational. We want people to leave our events excited and fizzing with ideas. I listened to a guy speak probably late 2018 even, Ken Hughes he was called. I don't know if anybody else was at that conference, but he was just the most inspired I've ever been by a speaker. And we want to give our members that sort of engagement, enthusiasm from every speaker we host. Focus less on learning about how the industry currently operates and more on hypothesizing how it might thrive in the future. Build a support network to support group members with their personal well-being and job satisfaction. And that has been the group's absolute main benefit to everybody in the past 12 months. We wanted to work as a group to help each member achieve their full potential with the industry, but develop each member as an individual, which subsequently benefits the industry and any company they may represent. We had a lot of requests early on from companies. Could we join up? Could they send us a list of everyone in their company under 35 and could we join them up? And we said, absolutely not. People join for themselves. Who they work for isn't a part of our discussions very often in the group. Everybody's a member for their own personal development. And we wanted to consider how to implement synchronized ideas on a business by business basis, but with the cumulative effect leading to a more future-proof horticulture. Again, as I spoke of earlier, hopefully something that we can discuss amongst ourselves and implement small changes to each of our businesses, preparing the whole industry for that new customer. So when best case scenario, best laid plans of mice and men, this was what we were hoping to achieve. From domestic events, we wanted to go to RHS Gardens at Wisley and learn lessons from houseplants. We wanted to go to the Eden Project to look at climate change and sustainability. We had a fantastic offer from Perrywood Garden Centre, who I think are one of the best centres in terms of visual merchandising and social media. We were going to go and spend a day with their social media visual merchandising teams. And as I mentioned before, Ben Bardsley from Bardsley Fruit had offered to show us how their production technology works, you know, sort of start to get ideas and think outside the box about how our industry might develop. We also wanted to put horticulture on the map by saying, look, my job has taken me to these fantastic international places as well. So we put the sponsorships together in such a way that we could arrange one international trip for a reasonable sized group of members every second year. This is something that the Next Generation Fruit Group has prioritised, and they took a team of 50 to New Zealand last year with it just before the lockdown, and they go to all sorts of fantastic places. So the sorts of places we were putting in our pipeline dreams were Ems Flower, alpine plant hunting in the Swiss Alps, the Dubai Expo, including the Miracle Gardens, and Japan for cherry blossom season. Big dreams, but dreams that if we could achieve them and we could put on a poster, a group of us at one of those sites and show it at a careers fair, would really put horticulture on the map as a career that takes you places. The reality, we had Zoom socials, we counselled each other using WhatsApp, we had Zoom seminars, and we had Zoom planning meetings. But that's not to say that we didn't achieve a lot of what we set out to achieve in the first place. Zoom seminars, we've had some phenomenal speakers through Zoom, and we've got fortnightly speakers lined up to see us through to the end of March. They include our ambassadors. We've also got some offers from the likes of Jane Lawler. We've got Lee Connolly, who's the Skinny Jean gardener, who does a lot of work on schools gardening and does the schools gardening campaign with M&S, lined up to speak in a few weeks. And the offers have really been there, and people have really stepped up to help out the younger contingent, which is really encouraging. But also, because of the group, 3 members found the confidence to apply for intimidating new jobs because of YPHA. 2 members had their first articles published in national magazines because of YPHA. Facilitated friendships that have turned into business partnerships. We had our top gardening tips. A few of us made short clips, and they were featured on Mr. Plant Geek's socials to tens of thousands of people. And that's our individual or business Instagram channels being shared to that audience. We've given members hopefully a full understanding of the implications on the virus on all stages of the supply chain. I know it can be easy from in your own business to see how the supply chain down issues are affecting and frustrating you, but if you've got full visibility of why they're happening, it's a lot easier to empathise but also collaborate to work through them. And we helped a plant-based subscription model to reach national press. So the value of what we are and what we could be, even in our infancy, we brought together over 100 people across horticulture, and we hope to continue this growth. Throughout the lockdown, obviously, focus has been more on the progressing towards the new consumer side, and we definitely have plans to revisit how we might be able to bring more younger people into the industry on the back of the lockdowns. One of the campaigns we've considered is My Job is Horticulture, but focused at creatives. So we have, obviously, as we all know, a lot of creatives, a lot of people who work in the theatre industry, etc., currently out of jobs for the long term and possibly permanently. How can the industry look to pull from those resources and prioritise hiring creatives and marketeers, etc.? And is that something we can do to show that, you know, jobs in horticulture aren't just dirt under your nails? They can be design work, they can be videography, and to show the depth and the breadth of the roles available. As it exists now, the group is already a huge asset, both to the industry and to every individual member. If I have a question about compost, I've got 5 new contacts that I can ring. And if I have a question about labelling, I have X new people. And all of these links and interlinks form such a valuable web of contacts. But we just want to develop it further than just a network. With such huge lifestyle changes occurring in recent years, we cannot afford to consider the needs of our future consumer. You heard me say that earlier. We have plans to revolutionise horticulture. To find out more, please contact YPHA at Outlook Association at outlook.com or visit ypha.org.uk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's very, very informative, and I'm interested in what you're saying about looking forward to the a new structure for horticulture and hypothesizing what that might be. That's I think very important, because we all tend to think as old people of how it was, 30, 40 years ago, and how it's not really changed very much. Anyway, we had one question came in here, and it says, on YouTube we don't find many UK career videos. Could the industry do more to create some? And are you, as you've got such a access to modern media, whether you're working on that with
Absolutely, definitely. Farming and agriculture did a really good one last year, and we were watching that as that happened. But we have in the group some very skilled videographers, and we are around the lockdown restrictions trying to put a planning session together to do exactly that, a careers video.
Good, thank you. I think we might just move on to Martin for a few words, if he's ready. You are. Hello, Martin.
Yeah. Are we live?
No, but we're in fact live, yes. And I'm just going to say that you are a very experienced horticultural manager, many years, and since 2009 you've had your own business in recruitment, working particularly in the horticulture sector. So you're going to speak to us about recruiting and retaining talent, and I hand the floor to you. Thank you.
And indeed. Thank you very much. Can you see that? Is that visible?
That's all good, yeah.
Good, excellent. I'd like to just talk you through just a sort of viewpoint from a recruitment perspective and a people perspective on what's happened over the last 12 months, particularly with people losing jobs, but also to have a little look further forward and just sort of look into the future. So a little bit more thought-provoking, really. So if I start, if we look at 2020, I think it's probably fair to say it was nothing like we've ever seen before. We had 2 national lockdowns. I think a new word came into everybody's vocabulary, furlough. Overseas seasonal labour plummeted, flights were stopped, and labour became acute. And as many people out there will remember, non-essential retail was shut down completely. But as always, necessity is a mother invention, and I think the British horticulture sector responded and has survived. If we look at a sort of a UK perspective, unemployment is rising and is estimated to be 5% of the workforce by March of this year. I think it needs to be put into context, though. I mean, we're getting up to 5%. We were at 8.5, 9 back in 2011-12. So it's troublesome. It's worrying, but it's not at the same level we've seen in the past. But I mean, what will this mean for non-horticulture labour? I think that, as you can see from that, the forecast is that unemployment rises and then starts to fall down again. So, so in the short term, there will be more available labour, certainly in 2021 season. But as we all know, the oldies are getting jabbed by the minute. Pubs and clubs and restaurants will start opening again, and planes will start flying. So I think there will be more availability this summer, but not so much in the longer term. That surplus labour, that non-traditional horticulture labour, will go back into mainstream roles. If I look at a classic horticulture business, it's management at the top, office support, and I generalise on that, and then into the glasshouse. And I think I wanted to have a look at what's happened and what is going to happen over the next 12 months. In terms of management, We've certainly seen other candidates from other sectors enter the market, but I don't think, I think that it's fair to say that, that there has been some very talented people apply for jobs, but if you're an airline pilot, is that really going to be relevant to horticulture? I mean, it's a very well-trodden path between fresh produce and horticulture. Where does one stop? Where does the other end? Where does the other begin? So I think that one's that's always been a well-trodden path. But as I said, we're seeing more coming in from food manufacturing. And I'll anecdotally tell you a story in a minute of somebody who I've moved from food into horticulture. But other FMCG as well. I think that we're quite prescriptive in what we look for in horticulture. I think sometimes you could open your eyes a little bit more and look for skills that are not necessarily, green fingers. There's other skills out there. But we've seen other FMCG. We've certainly seen people applying and coming for interview from engineering, as well as supply chain and logistics. So again, but it's fast. It is, you're managing large teams of people doing who are relatively unskilled and getting them to produce a product or get them to do something. If they're then in office support, I certainly think we've had candidates applying from hospitality, from food service, from airlines, and from tourism. In terms of, so how do you keep this sort of flowing, this amount of talent coming through? I think you need to sell the virtues of horticulture. It's very easy just to think that, it's just a boring old glass house. I have placed somebody who was working for a salads business, and she's used to wearing white Wellingtons, white coat. She's used to wearing a hairnet. She's used to being in an environment which is sub 5 degrees. It's wet, it's cold, it's pretty unpleasant. I got her a role. She's a QA supervisor. I got her a role with a leading horticulture business. And her first comment was, "Oh my God, it's so warm, it's lovely. And isn't the smell fantastic?" And we don't even think about this. You just take it for granted. But there are some virtues of horticulture, and it's only when you go around and other parts of recruitment that we do, and you go around a chicken or pork slaughterhouse, you realise quite how lovely it is working in horticulture. I think it's probably fair to say that many of you do this, but horticulture, it's bonkers between February starts ramping up all the way through to June, middle of June. But by the end of June, it's got pretty quiet. And therefore, why can't you offer flexi working? Why can't you have it so that people bank hours in the spring and then they can have some of the summer off? It's a really good selling point, and to be honest, it doesn't cost you an awful lot, if anything at all. I think keeping talent coming, you've got to pay at the right level. Just because people are unemployed doesn't mean to say that they'll hang around. But if someone's going to tap them on the shoulder to go back for a higher paid job, they'll go back again. I think this is into basics really, but keep everybody informed. I think that in any business, even in my small business, people like to know where they are. They like to know how the business is going. They like to know the good bits and the bad bits, but keep them in the place. And then that keeps them motivated as well. I know these are simple things, and I'm sure everybody does it out there, but keeping a well-informed and motivated workforce means that you'll keep them longer. It is pretty simple. So here we go, down to the Glasshouse teams. Pick for Britain, website we created, 30,000 people applied, Indigenous Brits. I think it's difficult to estimate how many of those actually got through and started work. Estimates vary between 2,500 and 8,000. What is for sure is that of those, very, very few made it beyond 6 weeks. I think 20% is the very top of what we're actually talking about. And if you look at an AHDB survey, the UK edible growers were a little bit more damning, I think. Nearly 2/3 reported employing more local labour, but of that, over 2/3 recommended, highlighted that it turned over far more than what they were used to. 90% of them said they weren't as good. And more worryingly still, 72% said it actually affected their profitability. So it wasn't a great, it was a nice idea. Everybody was furloughed, go and pick for Britain. But, you know, in many roles, and I will pick on outdoor agriculture, outdoor horticulture, edible horticulture here. It is backbreaking work, it's hard work, and it takes a certain individual to do it. So, if we had to sort of look at this year and beyond, the soil scheme, I mean, they announced just before Christmas that there's 30,000 workers can come over, but this is edible, not ornamental. But it still will take some of the pressure off, albeit the edible horticulture requirement is June, July when the harvest is coming through. Soft fruit, brassicas, salad is in full flow, but I mean, ornamental demand comes through earlier, but it's a start. I was only reading this morning in the Fresh Produce Journal that they're saying that they really ought to have 70,000 rather than 30,000. And there's 2 labour providers, and there's going to be 4, but the 4 won't be authorised until the end of March. It does have a bit of a pickle at the moment. So the question is, could it be tried again, the local labour? Could you be pulling people off who haven't gone back to work or have been made redundant into those roles? It's a question. So let's look forward. I think that certainly for glasshouse labour, Bulgaria and Romania will come back on stream again, and certainly I'm sure you guys out there have got people arriving or plan to arrive in the next month or so. But also, I think that rather than just looking at it just for this year, next year, or the next couple of years, what about over the next 10 years? What will fundamentally change? I think we've all heard it, automation, artificial intelligence, robotics. It's all there. We're all hearing it. But what could that future ornamental glasshouse look like? Manual work currently done by manual workers. I think we're starting to see cultivating robotics. Some of the machinery I've seen has moved on rapidly in really quite a short period of time. And there's a lot of planting machinery that's taking labour out of the glasshouse. Spacing robotics, starting to see this, it's coming more. I think then on to harvesting robotics. I actually, and if I look at harvesting and I look at the final part of dispatch robotics, I was lucky enough to, pre-lockdown last year, go around one of our clients, which is a herb grower. And this herb grower literally grows, has robotics at the front end, it plants, it puts seeds into the pot. The pot then gets moved by machine, by robot into the germination room. It then goes onto the beds and gets moved around by robot through the beds. At the very end, as this herb in its 11 centimetre pot is taken out and put into a bag, it gets a final inspection by hand, but then goes onto a conveyor. The conveyor takes it, it labels it, it puts 6 of these into a box, it seals the box, it picks the box up, it puts it on a pallet, it shrink wraps a pallet and puts the pallet in the cold store. That's today. Now, I know you're going to turn around and say, well, we don't just grow 11 centimetre pots, you know, we grow a multitude of pots, and so it's relatively straightforward, but it will come. But it's fascinating to watch. The great thing about a robot is that you don't have to pay it a pension, you don't have to pay a holiday pay, and it never has a hangover. But so what about the growers? I think the growers in time will be replaced by artificial intelligence. Sorry to say this, but you know, it'll be automated crop monitoring. It will be controlled pest and disease, humidity, temperature, light, all controlled by AI. Looking around, sensors around the glasshouse, sensors inside the plant pots, absolutely everything will be controlled. And the skill will be taken out of it. And there is, if you talk to any printer from 30 years ago, printing was a highly skilled job. Today, printing is done by machine. It's completely de-skilled. Today, growing is a highly skilled job. 10 years time, I think it'll be taken out. So the question is, how quickly? I love this because I in preparation for this presentation, I did have a chat with a few people. I had a chat with Jack Ward at the British Growers, he was rather cynical. He did say that 5 years ago robotics was 5 years away. Today we're still told it's 5 years away. I agree, albeit I think that's being a little bit disingenuous, because we are starting to see an awful lot of stuff coming out of the universities. And now, I mean, Harper Adams have done 2 years now of growing a hectare of barley without any human involvement whatsoever. It's a bit Heath Robinson, but it's getting there. And it will happen. It will be driven by necessity, because why are we flying people in from Bulgaria and Romania when we can buy a machine and do it like that? And so if I look at it, what roles will change? As I said, seasonal labour, talked about this, planting, spacing, lifting, dispatch will all be replaced by robotics. I think growers will be replaced by AI. I've already touched on that, but I think that the breeders will be coming up with they'll be sending seed, or they'll be sending cuttings, and they'll be linked in with software. You know, the software will be like a sort of a recipe of how to grow it and how it will work. It'll all be done automatically. And so if you look at it, who will you be employing in 10 years' time? I think software engineers who will be programming the equipment, making sure that it's working properly. Hardware engineers will be maintaining and fixing the equipment. And I think programmers will be coming up with new ways of producing the crop. And so is this far-fetched? I'm sure a few of you are smiling out there, but of that, if I go back to something that I can clearly remember, was everybody had a BlackBerry. We all went off on Nokia 6210s, and we all grabbed a BlackBerry because it did emails, and it was amazing, wasn't it? They went from market leader to virtual bankruptcy in 4 years. Tech change happens a lot quicker than it ever has done in the past. And I think that although it might seem 10 years away now, I'd love to be reflecting on this in 10 years' time and say what has happened in the glasshouses, or what's happened across the whole of the horticulture sector in that time. So, in terms of summary, I think 2020 was an extraordinary year. I think we all hope it will not be repeated, but I think it might be a pivotal point. I think new talent can be attracted into the sector. I've touched on it. I don't go into great detail, but I think it can be. I think it's a much nicer sector than we all take for granted, really. I think local labour is not a panacea for the overseas workforce today, but I do think that change is coming down the track. Fascinating what Nat's come up with earlier in her earlier presentation. It's Nat's generation that's going to be dealing with all this, and the next generation will be all picking up and making it happen. I think it would be fair to say for those who are a little bit older than 35, it'll be very interesting to watch. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that analysis of the way that horticulture careers are going at the moment. And I think we have got time just for one quick question, and that is, you and Nat have both come to the need for massive change, really, in the way that we look at horticulture careers. And obviously, we're all still tied with sort of seasonal activity. And a questioner asks here, seasonal contracts seem to be the norm, but how can we encourage young people in the seasonal industry?
I think it's the virtues of, I mean, I think if it's an overcast day in March and April, and you're asked to work extra hours and bank those extra hours, to have it available so that you can take that time off in July when the sun is shining and you can go and do stuff. If you can have that sort of seasonalized and annual or seasonalized hours.
So more flexibility.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll want people there at 10 o'clock at night when you're getting the stuff out the door in April. But come the beginning of July, it's all gone. All right, there's a little bit of tidying up to do this and perhaps some new plantings to go in. And it depends on the crop you're producing, but certainly demand is a lot less. And to have that flexibility is a key selling point, particularly for sort of the millennials coming through now who want that work-life balance.
Thank you. We are due to start a session then at 12:40. So for each of the three themes we've had this morning, we're going to have a separate discussion. So you can leave this session now, leave the stage and go to sessions. And at 12:40, we will all reappear in the different sessions, whether it's new gardeners, thrips, or growing your workforce, this one, excuse me. And then you can join the discussion and ask more questions. So please go there, 20 minutes, and then at 1 o'clock, we'll break for a short lunch break. So thank you very much for the speakers for this morning, and see you all a little bit later. Thank you.
Thank you.